Welcome to the studio. I am Ronan Chris Murphy, and this week I was mastering a record from artists from up in Northern California, and I ran into not really a dilemma, but something I wanted to do. It was a very vocal-centric record, but acoustic, and on a couple tracks I wanted to widen up the track and bring those guitars forward, but I really didn't want to mess with the vocal too much because the vocal itself sounded just right for the record. And so I was able to actually deal with that using MS processing, or mid-side processing. And that's not something I use all the time, but when you need it, MS processing can be a godsend. So let me show you how I did it. And actually this record, again, I just mastered it, so it's not out yet, so I can't really play you the material. But what I can do is pull up another song that was kind of similar, and I'll show you those techniques, what I did on this master, and how you might be able to use it on your own work. So, and I'm actually going to run next door to the lounge. My engineer Diego is here setting the studio up for a tracking session that we have coming. So let me show you this stuff next door right now. So we've got a track here from Dave Nachmanoff, and anybody who knows Ronan's recording show or any of the other videos at recordingbootcamp.com, you've heard Dave a bit because one is I love him. I love this record we did together. But Dave not only is a great artist, but also kind enough to let us use his stuff every once in a while to show off some of these recording techniques. So let me just play it right now. This is how it came straight off of the board.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down.
So I'm actually pretty happy with that. There's a few things I might tweak a little different, but I'm going to drop on a limiter here. And this isn't part of what I'm going to show you, but for those of you watching on a laptop or earbuds on the subway, this might make it a little bit easier for you to hear some of the techniques we're going to look at. So here it is, boosted up a little bit.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down.
Okay, so what we want to do now is, as we talked about earlier, we want to try and widen this up and bring the guitars forward a little bit. And the first thing, I'm hearing a little bit of build-up tubbiness in the low end. And you always want to look at addressing cuts before you get into any of these boosting techniques. So let me just do some EQ here. We'll go really bling and use the free one that came with the DAW. And we're probably hunting for something around, 100-ish or so, the woof, woof, woof.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down. Like handling China, walking.
Yeah, around 80-ish. So let's just pull that down a little bit. And one of the things you're going to notice with this is just pulling out some of that little boomy tubbiness is actually going to make our mix sound bigger and wider already. So here, let me show you that in and out.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down. Like handling China, walking.
Yeah, so we're one step closer without having to do any boosting at all. But now let's get into the fun stuff. We're here to play with fancy toys. So I've got this passive EQ here from SPL. And if you haven't used passive EQs, they can be a little bit of a mind melt. But once you get used to them, you're going to love them. It's kind of complicated to wrap your head around. But the reason we go through all this hassle of figuring it out is that passive EQs tend to sound really good, very smooth, musical, and you can do dramatic things without them kind of coming back and bite you in the butt by getting harsh. There's a whole lot going on, especially this SPL one. It's got so much happening. But the big thing with passive EQs is you boost with one knob and you cut with different knobs. So it's not like one knob that goes positive and negative. But we're going to just focus here in this range right around here because we want to bring up the guitars forward and make the mix sound a little bit wider. So that kind of sparkle on guitars, it brings them forward. You're going to find a lot of action around 8K, and we might want to bring that up because also we recorded these with a beautiful AEA ribbon mic, the KU4, I think. Yeah, the KU4. Which don't have a lot of aggressive forwardness in them on acoustic guitars, but they have gorgeous mid-range and lows. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go and pick this 8K range. Very tiny and kind of hard to see, but yeah, we're right around 8K there. I think that might be 8.6. Here, the Q, I'm going to go a little bit wide. Always remember when you're going to do boosting, especially in the mids and highs, look at using wide Qs because they're going to be way smoother, more musical than more narrow ones. And then this is going to be our boost. So I've got this set up just here, linked, so you notice if I boost this up over here, notice how that one over on the right side is also going up. That's because I've got these linked right here, and this is just set up to be a standard stereo EQ. All right, so let's check this out and see what happens when we start boosting up around 8K on this entire mix.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down, like handling china, walking on eggshells most of the time. He treats her gently, she thinks she'll.
So that definitely did it. That definitely brought the guitars more forward, made things feel a little bit wider. And one of the reasons this is feeling a little bit wider already is because we really localize with high frequencies. And when high frequencies get boosted or lows get cut, a mix will naturally start to sound a little wider, especially on a record like this where I've got the guitars hard panned out left and right. But let's listen to that again. Notice how the guitars are getting brighter, but also notice how that snare is starting to get kind of more aggressive and edgy and some bite to it. And even the vocals are getting a tiny bit spitty because, again, that 7K range is where sibilance starts to creep up. So let's check that out. And for you guys who aren't on Pro Tools, when this is brown, that's bypassed. That's right. And when it's gray, that means it's working.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down.
So yeah, that's starting to get edgy. That might be really nice for doing like something with Pink or Jessie J, but this is kind of adult contemporary Southern California folk rock and not really ideal for this kind of record. So one of the things we can do is switch over to MS, and that's where things get a little bit fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go over to Bank B. We can actually save kind of various EQ presets in here and go over here and start looking at some differences. So what I'm going to do on the second one is I'm going to switch to MS. And again, MS is another thing that's going to sort of melt your brain a little bit when you try and get your head around it. But in short, MS is when we set something up so that it processes the center information and the side information differently. So we're not thinking about this as left, right, but we're now thinking about this as center or middle and side images. So I'm going to go to MS, and that's going to allow me to actually EQ the sides differently. And in this case, we're just going to EQ the sides. So what I'm going to do here is take this off of link because I actually don't want to I don't want these both to go up and down together. I just want to deal with this channel 2, which is going to be our sides. So I'm going to try and recreate something similar. Let me go back and look at A. A, we're doing about 1.7 on the boost. Good. Q, yep, just about the same. And 8.6. And let's make sure this boost is off. And I got that pretty quick because I played around with this morning before my session. So what's going to happen now is when I switch over from A, which is our standard stereo left-right, it's boosting this 8K-ish range across the whole mix. And when I switch over here to MS, notice we have no boosting here, but we have boosting here. It's just going to do that on the side information. And check out how cool that is. So I'll just, I'll switch back and forth.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down, like handling china, walking on eggshells most of the time.
So So the big thing to focus on there, focus on that voice and that snare drum. Listen how with A, it's making that snare really bright and aggressive, and that vocal, and then B, it's actually smooth, but the guitars are kind of bright and exciting on both of these.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down.
Much better, because actually I got the snare drum and the voice really pretty close to where I wanted them in the mix. And I'll actually just go in and out with the bypass so you can hear. And we're just going to focus here on the MS version. And you might notice some funny noise in the background. I'm actually doing this in the lounge of the studio, and it just started pouring rain. And we're in Southern California. We need all the rain we can get. So let's take a listen to this in and out. And what I want you to focus on is how the mix gets wider, the guitars come forward, but we still maintain a fairly consistent vocal and snare sound. The hi-hat as well.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down. Like handling china, walking on eggshells most of the time.
Pretty cool, right? So let me actually just this is more than I would do it. I think that little bit that we did is plenty, but just so we can really exaggerate it and you can really hear it in case you're having any trouble hearing that, we're going to do it again with a much more exaggerated boost.
Steven seems to know how to calm her down. Like handling china, walking on eggshells most of the time. He treats her gently.
So yeah, you get that? Notice with the more aggressive one, we're actually starting to get more accentuation of the high end on the on that snare drum and the vocal. It's starting to creep in a little bit, but that's because I've got stereo drum overheads where a lot of my snare information comes from. And also, we've got vocals, a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, and a lot of things going into the left and right channels as well, and just the natural crossover of things there. So this is a really cool thing to do. MS isn't something I lean on all the time, but when you need it, it is extremely powerful. So have some fun with that. Again, this will take you a little while to get your head around because it's pretty cluttered and confusing, but there's some cool stuff in here. Let me just throw in one last caveat. The reason this works is because we're working with a stereo mix, and this works really well because the guitars are panned out to the extremes. If you've got something that's mono, these MS tricks will not do anything to make things more stereo or to process differently, because in a mono signal, you actually have the exact same thing in left, right, and center. I hope that helps out a little bit. Even better yet, I hope it inspires you to have some fun on your own productions. If you don't have any of these MS tools and you're not sure whether this stuff is right for you, the guys over at Plugin Alliance, who sell the plugin I just used here, you can do a 14-day fully functional free trial. So you can play around with this on your own productions and see if this is right for you or not. So that's it. Have fun, and most important, stay focused on the music first. See ya.